All right, I think we're good. Happy New Year, folks. Welcome to January. It is lovely to see everybody. New year, new resolutions. If you have a DevOps related or otherwise New Year's resolution, toss it in the chat. Let us know. If you want an accountability partner, I'm sure there's a lot of folks here who are looking for the same and would like to make progress on similar goals. So if you are aiming for something personally, professionally, let us know. If it's a wild, crazy, big, hairy, audacious goal, even better. I would love to hear about it. With that, I don't want to take up too much time, so I'm going to move through the deck pretty quickly. First of all, I'm going to introduce Pat. If you haven't met Pat before, Pat's been helping out with some of the community aspects of organizing DevOps Toronto and getting us all together in different ways. And so he set up Gather as a way to do that. And I will hand off to him and let him introduce it and let you folks know what that's all about and how we'll be making use of it.
Sure. Yeah, it's just some of you might have used tools like this. It's just kind of one where you can wander around and we're not all perpetually making eye contact with every single person all the time in a scary way. And it's kind of trying to just replace like the wandering out of the building and the, oh, hey, do you want to go grab a drink? Like that sort of way that maybe we enjoyed events in the past. So right now we might in a future week try to like just offer like a time before where it can be where you can drop in, but for now it's like an after thing, especially where it seems like real drinks might be getting further away as bars are yeah, at least up here in Canada. I know people are all over the place. Yeah, so GatherTown is a little spot where you can kind of wander around and you can kind of, as you move closer to people, their kind of audio and video fades in and out. So you can kind of form little groups or wander off or just talk to the people who are interested in the things you are.
Awesome. And there's, I think that what's cool about this is that it kind of grows organically and scales pretty well. So we can have separate areas for separate topics and all of that can just sort of develop naturally, which I really like. So it'll be interesting to see how we make use of that. And I think, as things lock down, especially this season, being so isolated is not something that I look forward to. And so things like this, I think could be really fun and break up the usual hibernation that we're used to.
Yeah, it's pilot mode.
It is pilot mode, exactly. We will learn and adapt. So getting to sponsors, I want to always thank sponsors. They're a big reason why this happens, and I don't have to worry about it so much. So CloudBees has been with us for quite some time. If you don't know about them, you should. They really run one of the most substantial DevOps platforms that you can use that incorporates all kinds of different areas of performance and delivery. So check that out if you've never heard of them before, or if you're looking for something new to level up. They do excellent work. And next, we have BMC. BMC also really investing heavily in the DevOps space, and they've got a lot of power, a lot of experience behind their solutions. So check them out if you're in a larger enterprise or you have something that smaller, younger solutions haven't been able to tackle. Finally, we have JFrog, the brains behind Artifactory. They are one of the big players in the software delivery lifecycle and the increasingly important software supply chain. So check them out if you are interested in immutability, repeatability, traceability across the software delivery lifecycle, because that is what they focus on. And I always plug this. I should be plugging new things because I have a bunch of new things going on. But I would love for you to check out my free ebook at flow.visible.is. It's all about bringing folks together to map and sense make and strategize together, find gaps, and focus on what really matters. So check out the ebook and get in touch with me if you're interested in collaboration and trying to figure out where you should focus and what's really going to pay off. So you can get a lot of information there. You don't even have to download the ebook. There's video, there's all kinds of content around, but I would love your feedback, and I think you'd get a lot out of it if you checked it out. And if you've checked it out, let me know in the chat, because I rarely hear about folks who've actually taken a look, and so I'd love to hear if you've seen it. With that, I'm going to hand off to John, because John is going to be sharing with us a kind of a classic dichotomy between, I imagine, velocity and quality, which I think is, really tough to balance, and I know a lot of organizations and teams struggle with. But without further ado and taking any more time, I will hand off to you, John. Thank you for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for having me here. I think I'm going to share my screen. Let's see if I can do it. Yes, I'm from Europe. At the moment, I live in North Germany, and the first time I had this one was in Sweden, and I took the original slides now. And I always use some of my own pictures. So that's some kind of new. Unfortunately, I cannot come over to Canada at the moment. I would have loved to. And some years ago, I think about 1,000 years, there's this legend about a guy called Leif Erikson. He was one of the Vikings, and they visited Canada. And I got some presentation for something in my presentation about how to build a Viking ship and what it has to do with DevOps, or the things we need for DevOps. Yeah. This is the clash between DevOps and quality assurance. And one reason I did this one is in project, sometimes my role is not absolutely clear. I will tell a bit more details inside the presentation about it. That's me, John Behrens. I've, as I told, different roles. I've been a Scrum Master, Agile Coach, a tester, and I have a background in software development. At some point, people began to call me DevOps. I do martial arts. I was a lifeguard, and I do photography and cycling. And you can see me on Twitter, Skills for Teams, or skillsforteams.com. And I even got a YouTube channel where I missed just 2 subscribers to give it a real name. So I'm going to post the link later. This is about one of the most important things in DevOps and in Agile are feedback loops and measurements. So no matter what, from which perspective I see, if I see from the testing perspective, or if I see from the perspective of DevOps, feedback loops and measurements are really important. You also have iterations. In DevOps, sometimes iterations are the same as releases. In Agile and quality assurance, we see it different at some points. What do we need for anything which we are doing? And that's sometimes people discuss is DevOps a bunch of tools, is it mentality or culture, but most times these things belong together. And this one are pictures I took in Denmark. It's Roskilde, where they build ships like the old Vikings built them. And what they're actually using for it is they have tools to do it. They use the same tools. They have certain skills, And what's really important if you want to use and build a ship is the mindset of going on sea. Like if I don't have people who want to go on sea, I most likely will not build a ship. So that's one of the most important things. I have this mentality of seamen who want to go and sail somewhere and even might sail to some unknown country, today known as Canada. So I need to have the right mentality to do something. And at some point you can discuss what has there been first. The mentality, the skills, or the tools. At some point it grows together. So if people have ships, they're going to invent better tools. If people like to sail, they're going to invent ships. And if there are better ships, maybe even the mentality grows and they want to do more things with it. I've got the traditional, I called him the dev or ops guy, and he has some certain things he are using. Mostly they are release new ones frequently. Command line interface is the absolute classic for an operations person. What came with DevOps was automatization, scripting. We have also tools like Grafana, Ansible, CloudFormation, Chef, Docker, Kubernetes, and all the cloud stuff. The typical skills is to configure environments that run software and hold it stable and analyze its failures. And that did not change from, my neighbor was an operations guy, but he's retired now. He tells me always about this cartridges he put into a computer. But the mentality is the same. They configure the environments. The mindset is a bit like, I'm the master of the operational platform. I run the process and keep them stable, deliver fast, and satisfy the customer. Then we have the traditional QA test engineer, different flavors. This position is available. Sometimes he's called a test manager. Sometimes he's called test automizer or whatever. They use tools like JMeter, Selenium, HP Quality Center in a classic, Jira, Cucumber, or explorative testing, which I named as a tool here. Their skills is finding bugs, analyzing codes, execute tests, and write reports. So they're writing bugs, write reports, and the mindset is I improve software by bringing it to its limit and improve by showing its errors. So if you have a tester perspective, you always look for things to improve. Yeah, and I'm gonna share some project experience of 5 projects where I came in different roles, and let us see how they work together and what was the advantage of it. Because in my opinion, DevOps is a thing which brings a lot of benefits for quality assurance, and we even need quality assurance in DevOps. And the first project, it was for a magazine from Germany. It's kind of a youth magazine. It's called every young people from about 13 to 17 has read it, at least at my age and the generation of my parents. The challenge was I was hired as a Scrum Master. I came in and we had no team. We had no servers, we had no infrastructure, no test environment, and this task was to rebuild an old website to a new social media aware community. Usually you don't have something like Sprint Zero, but as I was already hired and already inside the office, I need to do something, and I just setting up some web servers to have a test environment on. And one of the system operators sitting next to me, as I opened the shell and installed a web server, he told me, yeah, you are also a bit DevOps. And that was the time where the term DevOps was pretty new. I did not just hardly know it is existing. I was actually installing one of the first versions on GitLab. And just by opening a shell and installing a web server, which is a usual task, people assign me, you're doing more than usually do because you can take care of the operational platform as a developer. Yeah. What was the clash of it? We could plan the QA and infrastructure before coding begins. That's not always the case. Sometimes people just start coding and don't think about how to run or how to bring quality assurance in. There was a challenge of people were pushing to just see something and not check it for quality. What is a common approach in some, especially if you have people who are not involved in running the software or don't think about it, they just want to see something and say if it's good or not. We could test early, and what we also did is test if we could migrate the data. So we automized the migration, which was a huge benefit because, usually you run a project, and at the end you say, oh, we have to migrate the old data. By automatization of it, we migrated it every iteration, and so it was not. Could not be a big surprise at the end. At this point, GitLab was the best tool for managing Git repositories. I think they even did not have the CI/CD stuff at that point. And the learning was it is really useful to have showable results, to show something to the customer and get feedback. The next project, I was hired as an ISTQB tester, but I came in the project and it was a big insurance company. And insurance company have a lot of money. That's why they can run projects for a long time without getting a result. Smaller companies without money cannot afford it. This project was running for years. And I came in and I asked, hey, where's your test environment? And they said, oh, yeah, maybe you go to the developers and ask them how to install it on your laptop. And finally, after some days and asking around and trying around, I managed to install it. But that's the point where I said, okay, this is nothing we want to do. You run a software usually. We need to have this requirements better documented than in a wiki or in a Word document where half of it doesn't run. So even I was hired as a tester, I started to automate the platform, I started to automate the infrastructure. And that time I used Vagrant as a tool and Ansible to get them infrastructure as code. And that was a big improvement for quality because all technical requirements were documented in code. And we even could test that the software is runnable. So that's a typical DevOps approach, but it solved a quality problem. Get a platform where to run the software and have requirements documented. And there was even the challenge of build the same system exactly with same versions up to archive a virtual machine where the software was tested, and we could fulfill that audit request. That was an interesting thing, and there was one really clash between the cultures of developers and QA because this project was running for a time. And I had this QA guy working next to me, and he was kind of an evil QA guy. And he said, oh, I just want to show the developers did a lot of bad mistakes, and I want everybody to see them and blame them. And that was, in my case, the wrong mentality. And when I just walked into to the developer's office and asked them about getting some statistics about code coverage, which is not a big thing, one of the developers was getting really crazy and saying, oh, no, you QA guys always ask us for stuff and you never help us. And with working together and even providing this environment for developers, we could improve that relations. And at the end, it was a productive partnerships. Operations were not considered in that project. So operations were in another department where they just communicate by having complex conferences and bureaucracy, which is not that good. So by using infrastructure as code, we had a good documentation about that, and it could even improve a lot of stuff. Yeah. They had kind of role culture. So various contractors were blaming each other instead of working together to get a productive software, which is always a problem. Yeah, some things are hard to change. So that was a very conservative company, and I was not wearing a tie, but sometimes people were blaming me for not coming in a suit to work. That was, yeah, really interesting project. We made a big step forward by just bringing this approaches. Yeah, the project number 3 is where I came on, and at this time I got the right position. I was hired as an agile quality coach, so a mix of agile process and quality. And the challenge was, I came in and they told me, okay, our software is deployed by sending out a CD end of the year, which has the version for next year. And they were even developing in that kind of stuff. So they made a code freeze somewhere end of the year, like 8 weeks before end of the year. And then they created the first version. And actually, when I came there, people told me, we are not able to do it in another way. And the biggest challenge was to show them it's possible. So the meaning was like, yeah, okay, that's for companies like Google or startups doing that stuff, but not for companies like us. And the good luck was we had a very engaged team. I had 2 guys in. They were able to code and improve their things. One of these guys was one like working for 20 years in the company, so he knows everybody. The other one was very good in technology. And I even had the mentality to do things another way. So we finally had to satisfy people to show it's possible to build something. And actually by automatization, within a few weeks, we were able to build our own version of the system, which was the big approach, because before you had to ask an extra build team to build you a version, and they would have taken like 2 weeks. And after that, we had kind of nightly built. That time it was still running on TFS, which is now known as Azure DevOps. And it was really important to do it a first time. So people believe you that it's possible. This prototype of our build system was opening our doors and even open the brains of people so they see it. What we also introduced is acceptance test-driven development. So we introduced the requirements as the test as requirements as tests with ATDD, which is the method which I like. And I even could engage people from the business. They had like called it code developers, and they had business developers, which were more like kind of product owners or business analysts. And we could even integrate legacy software, which was important. So we could integrate the legacy test system to the new technology to take it with us and not do everything completely new. Yeah, and the biggest learning was that implementing stuff known as impossible can break the barriers to create a new mentality. And I think in DevOps, there's something you need to show so people in the organization see it works. And if teams have success, it's going to like spreading, others see it, even if it's an old mentality company and want to do the same way. Yeah, the first one, the next one was, I was hired as Agile and QA coach again. And they had kind of legacy project. And the challenge was they had like test systems, which were fixed test systems. I don't know if they were on real computers or virtual machines, but they had like 1 to 7. And these test systems were sometimes blocked. Sometimes there wasn't the right version on it. It was not able to upgrade them because they were running various tests. And what we did is building up a new virtualization infrastructure as code test systems, and even containerized the test systems, the test runners. So the capacity gap in testing went away because for every test we are running, we just shut up a new system. And so that was not a problem anymore, that the system was reserved or taken for another test or taken for another version. That was a big success. And what do we also do is stabilize the test. Just by having a dedicated environment, we lost it as a factor of having flaky tests, and by taking any test away which were not running every time correctly. So we divided it into two kinds of tests. We had the old flaky ones, and then we had the new hardened one. And before I came, people told somebody, the test is red. Okay, we run it again, then it might be green. And that's even a bad mentality. If it's a test or if it's the deployment, it should always run the same way. Either it's green or either it's red. It's consistency in everything you're doing. Configuration as code for test environment was a big advantage. For the test runners was a big advantage. The containerization of the application made it possible to test it independent. So you were not waiting for system anymore, which was a big benefit. The biggest learning there was continuous improvement is more sustainable than a big change. So when I came in, the people were waiting for a better test solution. They had no time to have a better test solution. And nobody was providing in better test systems. So they were waiting for months or years, I do not know how long. And what we did is like creating a community of practice, but not in a way of just meet and talk about it. We made it in a way of meet like one time per week, one time every 2 weeks for 2 or 3 hours, and actually get our hands on and every time, improve something about it. And that's the way we could have process and improve that systems. And the biggest challenge there was they wanted to do a version test, switch from PHP to from version 5 to 7. And by just having this flexibility in environments, we could test both versions in parallel. And that was a big benefit to this migration and to do it in steps. Project number 5. And that was the first of my project, which was only with operations, with DevOps. It was kind of transition. And that company was a big logistics company, and they had a data center. And what they told was, our power supply needs to be renewed and we don't want to pay for that. We better move to the cloud. So they decided to move the data center. Of course, they were running a lot of legacy apps. They had like WebSphere systems running on I think it's the IS400, one of those IBM machines. And they had legacy applications where they didn't know if they run or not. And they had an insurance, a performance peak at the end of the year because it was logistics setting something like UPS. When there's Black Friday or when there's Christmas business, everybody's going order and the systems are going down. Challenge was getting the data center empty, and they firstly thought they had no time to fix it. What was the challenging there? We need to ensure the performance is correct. So with any system we were setting up, we need to be sure the performance is correct and the performance is okay. So we implemented early performance testing to see if it's working, and we did some kind of lean startup approach at that time. So we made assumptions what will improve the performance, and then we run the test and see its consequences. And we were running a lot of tests, like 1 or 2 per day, to optimize it. We actually did A/B testing, which is also comes from lean startup. So we made it able to run the application like 70% on premise and 30% on the new one to see what's the impact on performance if the traffic goes there and everything works. And we made it possible to switch between both solutions fast. So what we basically did is enable experiments to get a faster feedback. Yeah, the next learning was this time we had so much infrastructure and configuration as code. We needed quality assurance for that. So we implemented things for which usually used by software developers, code analysis, static code analysis, and we also implemented tests and reviews to get everybody known if the code from the infrastructure, our code is readable and understandable by others. It even was a challenge for a lot of people who never coded before. They need to learn the new tools. They always discussed which is the right one. If it's just found an old picture where they said, now we need to stop Terraform and we need to switch over to, I think it was Ansible. So the DevOps people need to find the right tools for them and find the right rules for coding. Enabling experiments was really a benefit. So before they were not doing a lot of experiments, and by enabling it, we could learn from it and improve ourselves. And one of the learning is resting is not testing. They wrote it down there. Sometimes they set it up service in the cloud, but there was no traffic on, and they told, oh, they're there. But if you want to switch traffic finally over, there was always an issue. So we implemented that, said it's resting is not testing. If it's just there, it's like nothing. It's need to be tested and there need to be traffic on. And we even learned we cannot say test all the things in advance. That's why even this experimentation is so beneficial. What are the learnings I took? And one of the challenges is always prediction versus production. We have like kind of prediction environments, which are tests, which are staging, or whatever we call them. And we have the production. And even if you try to optimize it, mostly they're going to be some difference at the end. That's why the mean time to production should keep short, as faster and as smaller the packages you are able to get to production, as fast as the feedback is, and as smaller is the risk. Smaller packages means faster feedback and smaller risk of deployment. And for that, you need to join forces of ensuring the quality and even automatization, so you can keep the cost of deploying stuff short, small. Learning from each other is really possible. Not every company where I come to, they have the culture of learning. And this, sometimes I come where and they have like that guy knowing everything and not sharing knowledge for years. And you need to switch over mentality so people can see each other as friends, and even like the developer keeping that knowledge for years might feel better and might be happier if you can apply to new technologies than just being the only guy for the task at the time. And operational requirements need to be considered early. That's something which is not always in the projects. And you need to quality assure your automatization itself. I've got a bit conclusion of what it's used. And there are some things you find in Agile, you find in quality assurance, and in DevOps, they just call it a bit different. For example, the feedback cycle. In Agile, it's kind of Scrum, or it's kind of Agile value. And you see it in a daily, you see it in the sprint. In a QA, it's even a principle to have short feedback loops. If you search for the classic QA stuff, ISTQB, for example, and there's something called the test fundamentals and principles 3 is you should, as fast as the feedback is, as low as a class to remove a bug. So it's even if you ever discuss with people who are conservative quality people, you can tell them, well, it's good to automate things because then we get faster feedback and it's less expensive to remove a bug. And that's one of the basic principles in the quality assurance. In DevOps, it's called feedback loop. I don't know the exact difference between feedback loop and feedback cycle, but these things, make it sure that you can do it fast. What DevOps approach means to QA, and for QA, really the biggest benefit is if you automate everything, if you have infrastructure as code, you are sure that your requirements are documented. If you write it down, for example, on paper or in a wiki or PDF or Word file somewhere, it will always be outdated. I've never seen it another way. Everywhere I came, when I had to document how to install a system, I always did the stuff, and at some point they said, Marcus changed something, but he didn't tell and had no time to write it there. With automatization, you're sure how to build a system which can run your code. It's one really big advantage which I see. And even having environments early ensures you can start to test early, and then we have short feedback loop, fast feedback, and lower cost of bug reduction. One thing I see is like the role mindset versus mission mindset. And myself, I change sometimes the roles. So sometimes I come in as an agile coach, sometimes in QA or maybe even developer. I like to bring the project to success, and I will do what's needed for it. So if I don't know the technology and they just ask me to bring coffee, maybe I do that. If I can code for it, if I can set up systems for that, I will do that one. Especially at bigger organizations, sometimes people have a role mindset. So they just think in their role and say, I'm QA, I don't think about other stuff. Or like, I'm a developer, why should I think how to operate it? With a mission mindset, which is kind of DevOps or DevSecOps, or you can even say extend it to DevSec BizOps or whatever. You see the whole mission of what the project should do, and you do your best to reach it. That was it so far, what I can tell you about my project. And now I would like to have your experience. How do you deal with quality assurance inside your project? And what was your experience so far? I did not check the chat for yet. So I would like to have some feedback of you. And I think everyone has one experience where he introduced quality inside his job, or maybe get together with somebody from the quality department. Anyone has the experience? You can write it down or just jump in.
One thing I'll mention just until someone else interrupts me is I think that in my experience, there's that role focus versus mission focus can be kind of baked into the organization. Like the organization can be very focused on role incentives. And if you actually step outside the boundaries of your role in service of the mission, it's not actually rewarded, and it could actually come back to bite you. So I think that it's important to take an assessment of the environment to find out whether or not mission focus is actually something that will serve you in your role. Because in my experience, a lot of organizations that have silo problems is because they're rewarding siloed behavior and role focus, and they don't actually reward people for mission focus. because mission focus could lead to people drawing outside the lines, and that can be uncomfortable in the wrong environment.
Yeah, as if you're not used to the mission focus, you need to see. I've got experience in having some points where you can break out. For example, if you run a retrospective, there's always a possibility to break out, or if you have like this community of practice approach, is even some call it community of practice, or other use Spotify model and call it a chapter or guild. You can break out of your role and work on the mission. And that's good if you have this methodologies and a point where people can jump out first. Any more experience or questions? How did you manage your quality with automatization scripts?
Automation from perspective of DevOps or QA?
Well, both of it.
So I am a QA lead of a very large integrated project that involves about 35 different apps and 65 QA and 230 developers, both backend and front end.
Yeah.
When we first inherited the project, it's a conversion or migration, I should say, to the cloud of legacy systems that we had, and there was no automation whatsoever. And then all the integration pieces of it was obvious we needed to automate. So we hired a team from a subsidiary company to join us, and they had a Python Selenium framework, and we taught our manual automation, our manual QA, how to do automation. And that automation in less than a year, actually 9 months, for 27 of those projects has been automated. And the best piece to this is the collaboration with our engineers, because not only did we automate the front end, we also automated the back end. And we're working on workflows being fully automated, cutting down on the time, which is obvious, right? Everyone knows automation is going to cut down on time. But it was the collaboration from the engineers, software engineers, to teach us and help us to learn their app. Because learning to automate isn't nearly as easy to do if you really don't understand the nuances to the applications themselves, how they built it, what's involved, who does, the different pieces. This front end, what is front end doing? What is back end doing? Not even just from an API perspective. So I appreciate that a lot of these teams never had QA, but they learned. And it was another process we had that we call design to production, where QA is involved from day one. As soon as you have an epic, QA is there. They break down stories, QA is there, and we work and collaborate with our PMs and POs, product owners and product managers, to define and really solidify those requirements so that before the sprint starts, we've already written our test cases and we hand them over to where the developers can start working and our quality can start automating as soon as code hits dev. That's pretty much what we're doing, because it just worked out so great. But it took us a year to get to that point.
Okay. Thanks for that interesting experience. I mean, the experience with collaboration is always one of the key factors. I got some questions. I think that I cannot share the chat window. Ida asked, what is your experience with one in-house QA, 2 offshore QAs, 3 no QAs. Well, there is this approach, like you even just told Darlene, of have the QA inside the team. Yeah, there you can have the QA as a role, or have the QA as a mentality. With agile teams, they say build quality in. It's a skill which everybody needs to take care of. So yeah, having no QAs means basically everyone cares about QA. And then it's a question like how good they do. If you have a team which is responsible for QA, you will have good results with no dedicated QA. If there are developers who never cared about it, that's not going to be a good one. Yeah, one with in-house QA. Most of the project I was kind of in-house QA or hired in-house. An advantage of offshore QA is the people, especially if they are hired for a shorter time, have an outside approach perspective. So they don't need to take care about, they don't need to talk to the project for like, don't need to see them every day. They can just be honest and they can more challenging. And I think especially for security, it's good to have an external view. So the good thing about offshore is external view. If you just have people from a low-cost country just typing in stuff on your side, or just do stuff which could usually be automated, I think it's less effective. But if you hire experts for a short time to get some audit, get some improvement, it's good with another perspective. What next one was Sandeep. I think you saw it. He was writing. I work in an environment where we need automation, but it isn't there. Some projects or DevOps are doing automatization, but it's clear we need a framework that can be used across multiple teams. So that's, for me, approach of this community of practice. What I told you, it would be good to have a certain time to work on that. Maybe every 2 weeks, like for 2 to 4 hours, get together. Sit in a room, or if you work online, make a Zoom call and actually work on the framework. It's already still good if you share your experience. So if the team sees what the other team is doing, they can learn from each other, and they will sort out a solution together. And even have something like inner source. If the teams can access each other's source code and see it, they can also learn from each other. If they talk about it, it's more effective. Common quality issues in configuration as code is defined like other developers do not understand the code, which could be led to different things like other kinds of knowledge, or maybe it has bad names. It's not able to reproduce itself, or not written in a way which is not easy extendable or understandable. That's, I think, the biggest issue you have. Anyone else has other ones? Of course, if it's not running every time, if it's not reliable, causing errors frequently, that's even a sign of bad quality.
I would suggest that we keep this discussion going and gather for anybody who's available to stick around, because we are bumping up against 6 p.m. and we do try and wrap up at that time. But let me, do you have a final slide or anything to wrap up with,
Final
John,
slide.
before we switch?
Yes, I think I've got some. Let me check. This one is my final one. For project success, multiple perspectives are beneficial in mindset, in skills and tools. the clash between DevOps, QA, and all other roles is my conclusion of it. Yeah. And thanks for the interesting input. I held this to for certain times, and you seem the most active community till now. Yeah. Yeah, we can continue. You continue with the hangout and the meeting officially.
Thank you.
Yeah, will keep going in Gather, and we're always on Slack. So if you want to keep chatting in either of those spots, you can join us there. Thank you very much.
If you have more questions, I also sent the link and my YouTube link for those who want to be my last missing 2 subscribers, and LinkedIn if you have further questions.
Awesome. All right. Thanks very much, John. It was a pleasure, and really appreciate you sharing. Thanks to everybody who jumped in the chat and shared stories. Let's keep the conversation going.
Okay. Thanks for the nice